You ever have that feeling? Like the one where the world spins a little faster for a second and something inside you just knows that everything is about to change? That's how I felt the night I saw Rebecca in his arms. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It all started with a stupid, nostalgic dinner. "Let's have dinner with Brad," she said one night, casual as hell. Like she wasn't asking me to meet up with her ex-husband. Brad. Yeah, that Brad, her first marriage, the one that didn't last more than a couple of years. The guy who, according to her, was the biggest mistake of her life. I hadn't thought about him in ages. "We've moved past that," she assured me, smiling like it was no big deal. "Besides, he's remarried. It's just dinner." Okay, fine, whatever. Maybe I was being insecure for no reason. I'd known Rebecca for nearly 2 decades, trusted her completely, even after all those years. But something felt off. You know when you get that nagging feeling at the back of your skull? Like your instincts are pulling alarms, but you don't know why? That was me, but I brushed it off because, hell, 19 years of marriage. Why would I doubt her now? Fast forward to the night of the dinner. Brad was, well, everything I imagined. A bit too confident, way too charming for my liking, and still looking at Rebecca like she was a prize he almost won, but lost. He threw me those subtle looks, the ones that guys give when they're trying to test you. But Rebecca, she was playing it cool. Laughing at his dumb jokes, keeping it friendly, no red flags at first. It was like she was being the perfect wife in front of me, making sure I wouldn't catch on. But then, something strange happened. They shared a story, one of those back-in-the-day tales that went on a little too long. I sat there, waiting for the punchline, but it never came. Instead, it felt like they were remembering something together, something intimate, something that didn't involve me. That was the first crack. After the dinner, I couldn't shake the feeling. It gnawed at me, twisting my stomach in ways I hadn't felt before. Why now? Why after all these years did Brad suddenly matter? She hadn't mentioned him in ages. Now he's just Brad, someone who somehow belonged in her world again without explanation. A week passed, and that night kept playing on repeat in my mind. I didn't say anything to Rebecca because, what was I supposed to say? I sounded insane even to myself. But things kept getting weirder. More dinners, more texts that ended abruptly when I walked into the room. She was busy with work, a lot. But when I asked her where she'd been, she gave vague answers, like she couldn't be bothered to explain herself anymore. The real Rebecca had always been so open with me. This version of her felt distant, distracted, like she was wearing a mask I hadn't seen before. One night, I decided to follow her. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy. I'm not the jealous type, but there was something gnawing at me, telling me to just see where she was going. She left around 8, saying she was meeting up with some girlfriends. I waited 10 minutes, grabbed my keys, and tailed her. She wasn't going to meet any friends. Instead, I saw her pull up to a bar, one of those quiet places where people go when they don't want to be seen. And guess who was there waiting for her? Brad, smiling like a goddamn fox who just found a way back into the henhouse. At first, I thought maybe this was just... what? I don't know. Maybe they were discussing something about their past? Trying to find some closure or whatever. I wanted to believe it was innocent. But then she leaned in too close, and he reached for her hand across the table like it was the most natural thing in the world. That's when I felt it. The kind of burn that starts deep in your gut and makes your blood run hot. Everything slowed down for a second. My ears started ringing, and I knew this was no innocent dinner between old friends. This was something else entirely. My hands tightened around the steering wheel, knuckles white, breath heavy. What the hell was I seeing? I wasn't thinking clearly. Rage and confusion hit me like a freight train. I should have driven off, calmed down, and figured out what the hell was going on before doing anything stupid. But no, I sat there, staring, watching her laugh at his jokes, watching her lean in like it was just the two of them in the whole damn world. And then it happened. He stood up, casually, like it was nothing, and she followed. They walked out together, side by side, and got into his car. I didn't need to think twice about what was coming next. My heart was slamming against my chest, blood rushing to my head. But I wasn't going to sit there and let them disappear into the night without knowing where they were headed. I followed, keeping my distance, headlights off, trying to stay calm, trying to breathe. 10 minutes later, they pulled into a parking lot. Not a hotel, not a house, but some kind of park. It was dark, secluded, the kind of place you go to be alone. My chest was tight, my thoughts racing, 1,000 scenarios running through my head, but nothing could have prepared me for what I saw next. They stepped out of the car, stood there for a moment like they were deciding something. And then, without hesitation, he wrapped his arms around her. Not in the casual, we're old friends way. No, this was different. It was intimate, deliberate. His hands moved over her back, pulling her close. And Rebecca, my wife of 19 goddamn years, rested her head on his chest, like it was the most natural place in the world. I couldn't *****ing believe it. The world stopped. I was sitting there, a few feet away, watching the woman I had built my life with. Our kids, our home, everything, just melt into the arms of the man she swore was a mistake. It felt like a dream, like I wasn't even in my own body anymore. Numb, hollow. But the rage, that was real. Before I knew what I was doing, I was out of my car, walking, no storming toward them. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. Rebecca's back was still to me, and she didn't even see me coming. "Rebecca!" I shouted, my voice echoing in the stillness of the park. They broke apart instantly. She spun around, eyes wide like she'd seen a ghost. And Brad, oh, he was calm, too calm. That cocky smirk was still plastered on his face, like he was waiting for me to show up. "What the F*** is this?" I demanded, my voice shaking with every word. I wasn't holding back. I wanted answers, and I wanted them now. Rebecca opened her mouth, but nothing came out at first. She looked stunned, like she hadn't expected to be caught, as if I wasn't supposed to see what had been going on right in front of my face. "We were just," she started, but I cut her off. I wasn't in the mood for excuses. Just what? Meeting in the middle of nowhere to talk about the good old days? Because from where I'm standing, this doesn't look like just talking. My voice was getting louder with every word, my anger boiling over. Brad didn't say a word. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, watching me like he was enjoying the show. I could feel my fists clenching, the urge to hit him growing stronger with every second that passed. But I kept my focus on her. Rebecca took a step toward me, her face twisted in some kind of forced calm, like she was trying to control the situation. "It's not what you think, Mark," she said, her voice low. But there was no sincerity in it. It was all calculated, like she was trying to manage me, keep me from exploding. "We were just talking. We needed to clear the air." "Clear the air?" I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You clear the air by sneaking around behind my back? By wrapping yourself around this piece of *** like he's your savior? After everything we've been through?" I could see her getting flustered now, scrambling for a response, but nothing was coming out fast enough. Her mind was racing, trying to figure out how to spin this, how to make me the crazy one, paranoid, irrational. "I wasn't sneaking around," she finally spat out. "I was going to tell you." "Oh, you were going to tell me? When, Rebecca? After you cleared the air in the back seat of his car?" I took a step closer, my fists still clenched, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. The betrayal, the lies, the years we'd spent building something that now felt like it was crumbling in my hands. Brad shifted, finally speaking up. "Look, man, this isn't what it looks like. We were just..." "You, shut the hell up." I turned on him, every muscle in my body tensing. "You don't get to talk to me. You don't get to explain anything." I could see Rebecca's eyes flicker between me and him, like she was caught in some sick game, trying to figure out how to play both sides. She stepped forward again, reaching out toward me, like touching me might somehow make everything okay. "Mark, please, it's not what you think. I don't know what I was doing. I swear. I was confused." "Confused?" I barked, stepping back from her, my mind reeling. "You've had 19 years to figure it out, and now you're confused." There was a long, heavy silence, and in that silence, I felt something inside me snap. The trust, the love, the foundation of everything we had. It was gone, just like that. And the worst part? She didn't even look sorry that I stood there, my whole world spiraling, waiting for her to say something. anything that could make sense of what I'd just seen. But Rebecca didn't have it in her. Her face, once so familiar, now felt like a stranger's. She looked at me with that practiced innocence, but I could see the cracks in it. There was no guilt, no remorse, just a desperate scramble to stay in control. Brad, on the other hand, had the audacity to stand there like he wasn't even fazed. His calmness made my blood boil. I wanted to tear into him, but I was too focused on the woman I had spent nearly 2 decades of my life with. The woman who now stood in front of me, looking at me like I was the problem. "Mark, I swear," she began, her voice too collected. "This isn't what it looks like. I just needed to talk to him. We were sorting out some old things. There's history, but nothing happened. I wouldn't. I cut her off, the anger surging again. "You wouldn't what, Rebecca? You wouldn't betray me? Because I'm standing right here, watching it happen." My words hung in the air, and I saw her flinch, just for a second. But then she switched tactics. "Mark, don't be so dramatic." There it was, that condescending tone that always made me feel small. She had perfected it over the years, turning it on whenever I questioned her, like I was the unreasonable one for reacting to her shifty behavior. "You're blowing this out of proportion. We were just talking. You lied to me." I snapped, my voice breaking. "You lied. For weeks, maybe months. And you think you can stand here? Tell me this is just some innocent conversation in a dark park with your ex-husband? Do you think I'm a ****ing idiot?" That hit her. I saw the brief flicker of panic in her eyes before she steeled herself again. "We didn't do anything, Mark. I swear. You're being paranoid." "Paranoid?" I echoed, feeling the absurdity of the situation crash over me. My whole life was falling apart, and she was still trying to gaslight me. "You think I'm making this up? I'm standing right here. Rebecca, you're in his arms, in front of me. How stupid do you think I am?" She crossed her arms, her face hardening. "I didn't think you were going to overreact like this. It's not like I've been sneaking off to meet him every day. I told you we needed closure. We were just talking." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that felt foreign coming out of me. "Closure? After 19 years? You've had almost 2 decades to close whatever you had with him. And now you need closure." And then it hit me. It wasn't just tonight. This had been building for a while. The late nights, the gym, the endless excuses about work. I've been blind. Stupidly, pathetically blind. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my voice low, barely controlled. She shifted, and that's when I saw it. The hesitation, the flicker of guilt she was trying so hard to hide. "It's not like that," she said softly, her voice finally betraying a sliver of truth. "It's not. I just got confused." Confused. My voice was a growl now, and I could feel the last threads of my patience snapping. "You don't get confused and end up in a park, in the middle of the night, with your ex-husband holding you like that. How long has this been going on, Rebecca?" Brad, sensing the shift in the air, finally spoke up, his voice low and steady. "Mark, listen. You're upset, and I get it. But nothing's happened. We've just been talking. I know it looks bad. You don't get to speak to me." I snapped, turning on him so fast he actually took a step back. "This is between me and her. Stay the hell out of it." He put his hands up like I was some wild animal he didn't want to provoke. But his calm demeanor only made me angrier. I wasn't sure if it was arrogance or stupidity, but I wasn't about to let him off the hook. I turned back to Rebecca, my mind racing. "How long?" There was a pause, a heavy, suffocating silence that stretched between us, each second an eternity. And then she looked down. "A few months," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "A few months." The ground shifted beneath me. I felt like I was falling, like the world was crumbling under my feet. Couldn't believe it. This woman, the mother of my children, the person I had built my life with, had been seeing this piece of trash behind my back for months. "And you were going to tell me when?" I asked, my voice hollow. "After you were done figuring out how you felt about him?" She finally looked up, her face softening, and for the first time, I saw something like remorse in her eyes. "I didn't mean for it to get this far, Mark. I don't know what happened. I was confused, and I..." "Stop saying you were confused," I shouted, my voice cracking with the weight of everything crashing down. You weren't confused, Rebecca. You made a choice. Over and over again, you chose to lie to me. You chose to sneak around. You chose him. She stepped back, her face crumpling, and for a brief moment, I saw her falter. But before I could process it, Brad took a step forward, trying to insert himself into the conversation again. I think we should all just calm down, he said, as if he had any right to tell me how to feel. I snapped. Without thinking, I lunged at him, shoving him hard enough that he stumbled back. His calm mask finally cracked as he regained his balance, his hands coming up defensively. Mark, stop, Rebecca shouted, rushing between us. It's not worth it. Please, just not worth it. I spat, glaring at her, my chest heaving. You don't get to decide what's worth it anymore. You've destroyed everything. Everything we had, everything we built. You threw it all away for this. Her eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't moved. Couldn't be. Not after what I'd just heard. The months of betrayal, the lies, the manipulation. It was all too much. And as I stood there, staring at the woman I thought I knew, I realized something. I didn't know her at all. And maybe I never had. Everything blurred for a moment, like the world had shifted into slow motion. I stood there, fists clenched, my body vibrating with rage I had never felt before. The weight of her betrayal pressed down on my chest like a vice, suffocating me. And Rebecca, she stood frozen, tears now streaming down her face, but it felt like a performance. Too little, too late. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But more than anything, I wanted to know why the hell she chose him, this man, after all these years. Brad didn't flinch, though. He just watched, still calm, like he had nothing to lose. It was Rebecca who had everything at stake, and it was crumbling before her eyes. Tell me, Rebecca, I demanded, stepping closer to her, my voice low and shaking. Why him? Why now? After 19 years of marriage, after everything we've been through, after our kids. How the hell do you end up in his arms again? She sniffed, wiping her face, her words coming out in that trembling, practiced tone. I don't know, Mark. She choked on her words, forcing herself to continue. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't plan for it to happen. Brad. He just showed up and it stirred up feelings I thought were gone. I got confused. Confused. I hissed, shaking my head, the word cutting through me like a knife. That's your excuse for betraying me? Confusion. I took a step back, laughing bitterly. Confusion doesn't last for months, Rebecca. Confusion doesn't make you lie to your husband and sneak around with another man. You weren't confused. You made a choice. And you chose him. Her lip quivered, but I saw something else in her eyes. Beneath the tears, beneath the desperation, there was a flicker of something darker, something resentful. I didn't choose him, she spat back suddenly, her voice rising, catching me off guard. I didn't want to choose anyone, but I was tired, Mark. Tired of always feeling like I'm invisible to you, like I'm just part of the routine. You stopped looking at me years ago, and Brad, he reminded me of how I used to feel. He made me feel seen again. There it was, the ugly truth. It hit me like a sucker punch to the gut. The narrative she had crafted, the twisted justification that somehow I was responsible for her betrayal. My hands clenched, nails digging into my palms as I fought to control myself. You felt invisible? I repeated, incredulous. I was working my ass off for this family, making sure we had a good life, making sure the kids were taken care of, everything was taken care of. And now you're telling me you cheated because you felt neglected? You think I don't feel the same way sometimes? You think it's been easy? But you didn't talk to me, Rebecca. You didn't try. You just went to him. She looked away, unable to meet my eyes, her silence speaking louder than any words she could have said. The cracks in her mask were widening now, and I could see the real Rebecca underneath. The one who had been lying to me for months. The one who had decided that her own needs outweighed everything we had built together. And then Brad, because of course he couldn't stay silent, decided to chime in again. Mark, look. This isn't all on Rebecca. I reached out to her. We have history, man. I know it's hard to understand, but we were connected long before you came along. That connection, it doesn't just disappear. I turned to him, eyes narrowing. You think I give a damn about your connection? I growled, stepping closer, practically chest to chest now. You had your chance with her and you blew it. She's my wife. We built a life together. You don't get to waltz back in after all these years and pretend like you still have some claim on her. His jaw tightened, but I could see he was holding back, trying to play the bigger man. It made me want to break his face even more. He glanced at Rebecca, who was still standing between us, like she was the prize to be won. It was disgusting. Rebecca finally broke the tension, stepping between us, pushing us apart like we were two kids fighting over a toy. Stop it, both of you, she shouted, her voice cracking. This isn't helping anything. Mark, I told you the truth. I made a mistake, a huge one, but this isn't going to fix anything. I glared at her, my whole body trembling with anger. So what's your solution then, Rebecca? You gonna run off with Brad now? Throw away 19 years for a man you've already divorced once? Or are you expecting me to just forgive and forget because you were confused? She was silent for a moment, her eyes flicking between me and Brad, and then the most unbelievable thing happened. She hesitated. She actually ****ing hesitated. It was like a dagger straight to the heart. The realization hit me hard. She hadn't made her choice yet. Even now, after being caught, after all the lies, she was still deciding. Deciding between me and him. The rage, the betrayal, the heartbreak. It all exploded inside me at once. You're unbelievable, I said, my voice eerily calm. Even now, after everything, you're still considering him. You still haven't decided if we are worth saving. Mark, it's not that simple, she whispered, her eyes pleading. Yes, it is. I shot back, stepping away from her, feeling a strange sense of clarity wash over me. It's simple as hell. Either you want this marriage or you don't. But you know what? I let out a bitter laugh. It doesn't even matter anymore. I'm done being your backup plan. I'm done fighting for someone who can't even look me in the eye and choose me over a man she already left once. Brad stayed quiet now, his cocky smirk fading as the reality of the situation began to settle in. Rebecca just stood there, tears still flowing, but I wasn't buying it anymore. Not after what I'd seen. Not after everything she had done. For the first time in months, I felt like I had control over my life again. My heart was shattered, but the clarity was undeniable. Go home with him, Rebecca, I said quietly, turning away. You've already made your choice. And with that, I walked away, leaving them both standing there, their pathetic excuses hanging in the air behind me that I walked away. But the fury inside me was relentless, like a fire that wouldn't burn out no matter how far I got from them. I made it back to my car, my hands trembling as I gripped the steering wheel. For a second, I just sat there, staring ahead, trying to process what had just happened. 19 years. 19 years of my life, gone in a matter of minutes. I had trusted her with everything. We built a home, we raised kids, we planned for the future. And now, it all felt like it had been a lie, like I had been the fool this whole time, blind to the truth sitting right in front of me. I could still see them in my rearview mirror, standing there in that dimly lit park, their silhouettes barely moving. I imagined them talking now, trying to figure out what came next for them, as if my life was just a temporary disruption in their story. My knuckles turned white as I gripped the wheel harder. I wanted to drive away, to leave this nightmare behind, but something inside me snapped. I wasn't done. I slammed my car door shut and walked back toward them, each step heavier than the last. I didn't know what I was going to say or do, but I couldn't let it end like that. Not with her still stuck between us. Not with Brad still thinking he could walk away from this like he'd won. As I got closer, I saw them talking. Rebecca was crying again, her hands covering her face, and Brad was rubbing her shoulder, still playing the comforting savior. It made me sick. They didn't notice me at first, too caught up in their little world. But the moment I came into view, Brad's eyes met mine. His hand dropped from her shoulder immediately. Rebecca turned toward me, her face wet with tears, but I didn't care anymore. I wasn't there to play the broken husband. I was there to finish this. What the hell do you want now, Mark? She said, her voice shaky. like she was exhausted from all the drama. I told you everything. There's nothing left to say. You really think that? I asked, my voice low and dangerous, barely able to control the storm inside me. You think I'm just going to let this go? Walk away and leave you two to whatever the hell this is? She blinked at me, confused, and I could see her trying to grasp at the last shreds of control. What do you want me to say? I've admitted everything. I've told you the truth. The truth? I laughed, shaking my head. You haven't told me the truth, Rebecca. You told me your version of it. The version where you're the victim, the confused wife who just stumbled into her ex-husband's arms. But I don't buy it. Not anymore. She stepped forward, her hands out like she could somehow calm me down with a touch. Mark, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I'm not choosing him. I'm not. I was lost. I didn't know how to talk to you. I didn't know how to ask for more. You didn't know how to ask for more? I echoed, incredulous. So you ask him? You think going behind my back was easier than telling me you were unhappy? Her lips quivered, and for a split second, I thought I saw something real, regret, maybe even guilt. But then, Brad stepped forward, putting himself between us. Mark, you need to calm down, he said, like he was the reasonable one here. This isn't going to help anything. We should all just go home. Think about what's happened. Cooler heads. Cooler heads. I cut him off, taking a step closer until we were nearly nose to nose. You don't get to talk about cooler heads. You're the reason we're in this mess. You reached out to her, didn't you? You couldn't leave well enough alone. Had to worm your way back into her life like some anti-parasite. You think you can just walk away from this now? He didn't flinch, though I could see the tension in his jaw. It's not that simple, Mark. There's history here. We've got unresolved. History, I growled, shoving him hard in the chest. You're just ing ghost from her past. You're nothing. Brad stumbled back but caught himself, his eyes narrowing as if he was finally ready to fight back. I don't want to fight you, man. This isn't about you and me. It's about her. She's the one who's been unhappy. Rebecca stepped between us again, her voice shrill now, like she was barely holding it together. Stop it. Both of you. Just stop. This isn't helping anyone. I've already ruined everything. Okay? Is that what you want to hear? That I destroyed it all? That I'm the bad guy? I stared at her, my chest heaving with every breath, but the fire inside me didn't cool. She looked so small now, crumpled under the weight of her lies, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. You're right, Rebecca, I said slowly, my voice like ice. You did destroy everything. And you know what the worst part is? You didn't even have the guts to admit it until I forced you to. You didn't choose him tonight, but you didn't choose me either. You chose yourself. You chose your own selfishness, your own ing confusion. And now, you want me to feel bad for you. She opened her mouth to say something, but I wasn't done. I spent 19 years building a life with you, 19 years trusting you. And this is how you repay me? With lies, sneaking around, and this pathetic excuse of a man. Brad stiffened, but I didn't care. I was beyond caring what he thought. He wasn't even a threat to me anymore, just a sad reminder of what my life had become. Rebecca sobbed openly now, but the sound of her crying felt hollow. I had heard it too many times before, each time thinking it was real, thinking she was the woman I had always loved. But now it was just noise, empty. I stared at them both, feeling the weight of everything settle in. The betrayal, the lies, the years wasted on someone who wasn't who I thought she was. And then, something clicked inside me. Cold, bitter clarity. You're right, Rebecca, I said, my voice calmer than it had been all night. You've ruined everything. And now, I'm done. You can have him or don't. I don't care anymore. But you're not my problem. Not anymore. With that, I turned and walked away for the last time. This time, I didn't look back. That I got into my car, slammed the door, and sat there, staring out into the dark, empty road ahead of me. The silence was deafening. I couldn't hear her cries, couldn't see Brad's smug face. For a brief moment, I felt nothing. Numbness. The kind that creeps in after everything has burned down and there's nothing left but ashes. I should have felt relieved. I should have been proud of myself for walking away, for standing up after being gutted by the one person I thought I could trust. But instead, all I felt was emptiness. 19 years, gone in an instant. What was I supposed to do now? Where was I supposed to go? Everything I'd built, everything that made sense, it was shattered. I turned the ignition, the engine roaring to life. I didn't know where I was driving, but I needed to go somewhere. Anywhere that wasn't here. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, and drove into the darkness. My head spun with the weight of everything that had happened in the last hour. How the hell did it come to this? I thought back to the beginning, the day I first met Rebecca. The way she smiled at me, her laugh, her touch, everything that made me fall for her. It all felt so distant now, like a story from someone else's life. The woman in the park wasn't the same woman I married. She wasn't the mother of my kids. She was someone else. Or maybe she had always been this way, and I just refused to see it. I hit the gas harder, speeding down the empty streets, headlights cutting through the dark. I didn't care where I was going. All I could think about was how everything had unraveled so quickly. How did we go from having family dinners, laughing at old stories, planning vacations, to this? To me, alone in my car, my marriage reduced to rubble. Brad's face popped into my mind, and my foot pressed harder on the gas. That smug bastard. How long had he been lurking in the background, waiting for his moment to swoop in and destroy everything? Had this been his plan all along? And Rebecca, how could she have let it happen? I slammed my hand against the steering wheel, shouting into the empty car, the frustration boiling over, the rage, the disbelief, the heartbreak. It all tangled together until I couldn't separate one feeling from the other. All I knew was that I couldn't go back to that house tonight. I couldn't face the empty space where our marriage used to be, where her lies still lingered like a bad taste in the air. And the kids. God, the kids. How was I supposed to explain this to them? How do you tell your children that their mother, the woman they look up to, the woman who tucks them into bed at night, decided that wasn't enough anymore? That she needed more? That she was confused? They wouldn't understand. Hell, I didn't understand. I pulled over into a gas station parking lot and killed the engine. My hands were shaking, my breath coming in shallow gasps as everything hit me all at once. There was no more pretending, no more trying to rationalize her actions or find some silver lining. Rebecca had betrayed me. She had ripped apart everything I thought we had, and I was left here, sitting in a parking lot, trying to pick up the pieces of a life that didn't make sense anymore. I leaned my head back against the seat and closed my eyes, trying to find some calm in the storm raging inside me. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together again. The way she leaned into him, the way she looked at him, like she was seeing her past and her future all at once. It made me sick. The worst part, a part of me, the most pathetic part, still wanted to believe it was a mistake. That maybe, somehow, she wasn't lost to him completely. That maybe, when she woke up tomorrow, she'd realize what she had done and come crawling back, begging for forgiveness, begging for another chance. But I wasn't that naive anymore. I couldn't afford to be. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a choice, a deliberate, calculated choice. And as much as I wanted to believe she could be sorry, that she could somehow make it right, I knew deep down that the woman I married was gone. The Rebecca I loved had been gone long before tonight. I just hadn't seen it. I took a deep breath, staring out at the neon lights of the gas station, the hum of distant traffic, the only sound in the still night. My phone buzzed in the cup holder, but I ignored it. I knew who it was. I knew it was Rebecca, probably texting some half-baked apology. Something about how she didn't mean for this to happen, how she wanted to talk, how she was sorry. But what could she say now that I hadn't already heard? Sorry wasn't going to fix this. Sorry wasn't going to undo the months of lies, the months of her sneaking around, the months of her choosing someone else over me. I stared at the phone for a long moment, the screen lighting up with her name. My finger hovered over the screen, torn between wanting to see what she had to say and wanting to smash the damn thing against the dashboard. But I didn't do either. Instead, I let it buzz again and again, each vibration feeling like a distant echo of what our life used to be. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of knowing she had shattered me. Not tonight. Not anymore. I leaned back again, staring up at the dark sky through the windshield, and exhaled a long, shaky breath. What the hell was I supposed to do now? The night dragged on as I sat in that parking lot, staring blankly at the dashboard, my mind spinning with questions I knew I'd never get real answers to. My phone had finally stopped buzzing. Rebecca must have given up, or maybe she didn't know what to say anymore. Not that it mattered. I couldn't bring myself to read her messages. Whatever excuses or apologies she had cooked up, they wouldn't change the truth. I gripped the steering wheel again, my knuckles turning white. The whole situation felt surreal, like I was outside my own life, watching someone else's tragedy unfold. 19 years of marriage. How did it all end like this? How does someone you love turn into a stranger overnight? I had thought we were solid. Not perfect, sure. But who's perfect after nearly 2 decades of life together? We had our routines, our little fights, our struggles, but it was normal. I thought we had built something unbreakable. I never imagined she'd be that person, sneaking around behind my back, meeting up with her ex-husband like it was some twisted high school reunion. And Brad, that smug bastard. He had been so confident, so comfortable in the middle of all of this. It was like he knew she'd come back to him eventually, like he had just been waiting for the right moment. I couldn't stand the thought of them together, of him putting his hands on her, of her letting him. My mind kept replaying the scene in that park, the way they had stood together like I didn't exist, like their world didn't include me anymore. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to feel nothing but rage toward her for what she had done, for how she had blindsided me, but it wasn't that simple. Anger was easy, but the sadness underneath it was suffocating. The grief of losing the woman I had built my life with, the mother of my kids, the person I thought I would grow old with. I let out a long breath, feeling the weight of it all settle over me like a heavy blanket. It was exhausting. The betrayal, the questions, the anger. There was no escape from it. Not yet. Not tonight. My thoughts shifted to the kids. How was I going to explain this to them? How was I supposed to tell them that their mom, the woman who had always been their rock, had decided to tear our family apart? That she had chosen someone else? Someone from a past she had long buried? They were going to ask questions I didn't have answers to. I didn't even know how to make sense of it myself. I could picture their faces already, confused, hurt, maybe even blaming me at first. I'd have to be the one to hold it together for them, to be strong when all I wanted to do was fall apart. I had no idea how to handle this. Divorce wasn't something I ever thought we'd face. Sure, we had our rough patches, but we always worked through them. Or at least I thought we had. The thought of Brad being anywhere near my kids made my blood boil. I couldn't stand the idea of him playing some role in their lives, even as a shadow in the background. He didn't belong there. He didn't deserve to be anywhere near the life I had built with Rebecca, with my family. The thought of him being around my kids made me want to tear everything down to keep them safe from whatever poisonous influence he might have. But what if Rebecca chose him? What if, after all this, she actually did want to be with Brad? What would that mean for the kids?